right, everybody, welcome back to this episode. What we got going on today, Paul? Continuing working on the M66.
The fun, shiny part of the job. We've got our new clutch and flywheel and pressure plate that we've talked about in previous episodes from SPEC. We're gonna get that on the car today. If we're feeling very frisky, we might get the transmission up, but we'll do this at least.
Right. Okay, so Paul's done all the research. We've looked at all the flywheel bolts. Basically looked at this side of the transmission now that everything's off. And yeah, now's the time to get the beautiful clutch provided to us with our partners at SPEC. Great people. We've worked with them in the past. And again, as we said in previous episodes, SPEC's been fantastic and we're really happy with this clutch kit and we can't wait to get it on the car.
The visual quality of this isn't just nice. I mean, it is nice. It looks beautifully machined, but SPEC has done a really good job with a little attention to detail stuff. This uses all of the stock hardware. So we'll be putting OEM flywheel bolts in and OEM pressure plate bolts, and everything will bolt right up just like a stock dual mass.
Perfect. All right.
We've got our alignment dowel here. Matches the one on the crank there. Get that up into place. Don't be alarmed by the lack of anything here in the end of the crank. The M66 is kind of unique in that it doesn't use a pilot bearing here. It's such a short, rigid transmission that there isn't really a whole lot of play on the input shaft, so these cars don't call for a pilot bearing.
All right, so Paul went and grabbed some flywheel bolts that we had on the shelf here.
These are the genuine Volvo bolts. You can see they're triple square on the end, so if you're doing a clutch job on these, both removing the old flywheel and putting a new one on, or removing the flywheel to resurface it, you'll need triple squares to pull the bolts off, and these are torque to yield. You can see they've got a little bit of pre-applied thread locker on them, but there's a torque spec and then an additional angle spec. So we've got all new bolts here. We'll be threading those in, locking the flywheel down as best as we can, and then we'll tighten them in a star pattern to 45 Newton meters and tighten them again another 65 degrees. We've got some webbing from the casting in the end of the block here. When we tighten this flywheel down, we need to make sure the motor doesn't spin over while we're tightening it down. This may require an extra set of hands, so I may have Chris set the camera down, or we may bring another IPD employee in, but we'll have one person wedge something in there to keep it from spinning, and then I'll go ahead and while that's locked in place, tighten all of those down to torque and then to the right angle. Going in a crisscross pattern here, up and down and up and down. On to the next one.
There you go.
All right, we've finished our torque spec on these. I'm switching to a long-handled screwdriver now so I can get my angle pretty precise when we do our angle tighten on this. Well, we've got a screwdriver wedged into the engine here between the webbing on the end of the block and the teeth on the flywheel. Hopefully we can hold that securely in place while we once again go in a crisscross pattern and give 60-65 degrees to each one of these. Let's give it a go. We're slightly deforming the bolts. They're being slightly stretched out, so it's held under constant tension, forms a really nice strong grip. We've got everything tightened down to our torque spec and then our angle spec. Before we put the clutch and pressure plate on, this is a freshly machined part, so we want to make sure it's nicely cleaned. It probably just came off the lathe. It may have a little bit of oil on it. Grab your favorite solvent, give it a quick spritz before you put anything else on there.
Yep.
We just need to worry about the mating surface here. Don't want to ruin a nice new clutch with some machine oil. We've got the flywheel on now. Order of operations, next we go for the clutch disc before we put the pressure plate on top of it. You've got to make sure you put the disc in the right orientation. Both the OE disc and the spec disc are labeled which way they go. We've got transmission side here and flywheel side here, so we know this side, flywheel side, goes toward the engine. We'll put that in there. We'll put the supplied alignment tool through. This helps the transmission go on easier. We don't want the clutch disc sliding around, or the transmission input shaft splines will have a hard time going. This is, like the flywheel, a machined surface, so we're gonna give this a quick spritz of brake cleaner before we put it on. Let that dry off for a moment. One of the problems you can run into going with a high-performance single-mass flywheel is that a single mass doesn't dampen vibration as well. If you put in a single mass and your car chatters at idle, it can be exacerbated by everything being a little bit out of balance. The OE dual mass flywheel is really good at making sure there's no chatter, but to minimize chatter, you want to make sure everything is balanced really well. Spec clutches and flywheels aren't just balanced individually, they're also balanced together. On this spec clutch and flywheel here, Spec has left us a nice little yellow paint mark here. Putting these together with the paint marks matching means we'll have the best balance. We'll line those marks up. We've got a couple of dowels on the flywheel that go into matching holes on the clutch pressure plate. You'll notice this clutch pressure plate is a single or non-adjustable. It does not have the ring in here with the 3 little self-adjusting clutch tabs that the OE clutch does. Make sure if you do have an OE clutch that those springs are all the way compressed, or you might need the special clutch self-adjusting tool. With that in there, Spec also supplies new pressure plate bolts. They include lock washers with them, but we're going to throw a little bit of blue Loctite on them just to be on the safe side. Just a drop will do here. It's a nice little dab on all of them. We will hand snug these down, and just like the flywheel bolts, we'll torque them down in a cross pattern. The spec on these is 24 Newton meters, or about 18 foot-pounds. I'll get 2 started so Chris can move his hand.
There you go.
I've got all of these pressure plate bolts hand snugged. This is your last chance to check the alignment on your clutch alignment tool here. The clutch is being squished between the pressure plate and the flywheel, so because it's only hand snug, we can still wiggle it around just a little bit. Make sure it's as straight as you can get it. Give it a nice good end-on look. And once you're satisfied, pull the alignment tool and torque all these bolts down. Again, 24 Newton meters or 18 pound-feet, and we're gonna go across. There's no angle spec on these. We're just going until it clicks.
Okay, just real quick. Paul is on the ground here. Bud, say hi.
What's up?
He's inside, and what he's doing is he's removing 2 13s on the firewall. We got to punch this out. There is a little plate that goes on the automatic cars. This is the clutch master cylinder here, and that goes through this part here, attaches to the pedal assembly. This goes inside the engine compartment. It's located underneath the brake master cylinder and the ABS module, and it goes right through the firewall. And in order to install this, you have to remove this little plate. So Paul is down there underneath the car looking at where that little plate is as Bud removes it, so we can punch it out and get the master cylinder put in place for the clutch. Here is the plate that's on the automatic cars. That's the manual cars for the master cylinder for the clutch. This is the plate that needs to get knocked out. Bud just crawled underneath the dash and took off the 13s and pushed it out. Paul was down there prying, and now we got to feed that thing through there.
This way, yeah?
All right, there goes Paul. He's checking it out, looking at the right angle to get this thing bolted in there. There really is only one way that thing can go in. Okay, so Paul's in there. He's got the clutch master cylinder lined up, and it really can only go in one way, don't you think, Paul? I mean,
yeah.
The way that the orientation is around that flange, it should sit in there. Bud, how's it look inside? Yeah, I think we're good. We're going to go ahead and get this sink down on the inside, put the nuts back on it, and be good to go. So Bud and Paul and team We just put the transmission onto our transmission jack, which is over there on the far side of the shop now. But we're able to line it up, get about 3 bolts in here, so the transmission now is bolted up and over the clutch kit and bolted to the engine. We did it nice and safe here on the lift. We're lucky that we have that and all the right transmission jacks to line it up, so that way nobody broke their back. So the transmission is in safe. Next step, Paul, get all the bolts done around the outside of the transmission, and then we will work on the subframe. All right, Paul, why don't you go ahead and give all of our watchers a little update on where we're at as of now.
Yeah, we can peek under here and take a little look.
Yeah.
Definitely looks a lot more like a car and less like a gaping hole in the chassis now. We got the transmission in yesterday. Saw some nice footage there, the spec clutch and flywheel going on with the transmission on and everything bolted up. Angle gear went in next. We made sure our steering rack was still in a good position where we could sandwich the motor mount above it between the subframe below it. We got the subframe roughly in position, did some jockeying around, tightened everything just loose enough to where we could still move it, and then finally got everything down. There's not a whole lot of wires and such to worry about under here. We've got a few hard lines over here. I think in one of our videos we went over unclipping these guys from the subframe before you drop the subframe.
Right.
Those went back in.
Yep.
There's a couple of things that run along but are not directly attached to the subframe up front. We spent a little bit of time monkeying with the ground strap here,
right,
which is actually, we discovered today, different between the automatics and the manual.
Okay, so for weeks, because Paul and I only come out here in the afternoons and work on this a little bit, this car has been living with 2 engine mounts. We're going to disconnect them and remove them now that we have complete confidence that the engine is back on the subframe. And it is going to be so nice to get these out of here because I hate them sitting on this car, even though they're completely necessary to have to do the job that we just did. So, nice. As you can see, we protected the fenders. We made sure that there wasn't anything pressing up against the sides of the fender. Paul and I did a really good job being careful of the paint and everything on the vehicle. But yeah, as you can see now, everything's loose. And yeah, we're just going through all of our hardware. We've been lucky so far that all the hardware that we've removed and bagged and labeled, we've used. We don't have anything extra at this point. So that's a plus. But yeah, looks like everything's coming back together as it should. And that's really exciting. All right, nice job. And there she sits, the motor and the new manual transmission. Obviously, we got a lot of work to do still to put it back in, or to get this thing going. But yeah, we're making progress. Any final words for our customers on this episode?
I think we've been through it all, or at least all we can go through today. Wiring and software, this is where the fun begins.
Yeah, so on our next episode, make sure and stay tuned. We're going to start buttoning things up, which is pretty simple. I mean, like I said earlier, we've been doing extra stuff on the vehicle, right? Like we're doing new struts on the car. We're doing a heater core. I just replaced the turbo.
We found some hoses that we need to replace.
Yeah, we found some hoses, some coolant hoses that we're going to be replacing. Just some things maintenance-wise while we're here.
With the subframe out and with the transmission off, it's what I've been calling throughout this job unparalleled access to stuff.
Right.
We've definitely had space in there to, if not replace every little thing we have access to, at least to look at it and see if it needed to be replaced. Right.
So we're doing that, so we're waiting on some parts to arrive. Next will be basically routing the wiring for the reverse lockout. We got to do some routing, some wiring there. We want to make sure and make it look very OE. We got to put the center console in, the pedal assembly, but we couldn't do any of that until we got the car off the lift. So the next step is to get the struts back in the vehicle, roll the car back away from the lift so we can actually open the doors all the way, and Paul can wiggle himself under the dash, and we can start working on the pedal assembly. So we'll make sure and cover that in the upcoming episodes. So make sure and stay tuned. Thanks for subscribing and watching, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks.